For my thoughts on all the latest happenings in the NFL in a completely relaxed, unscripted format, be sure to check out my channel, JG9 News. And now, on with our feature presentation. What's the most exciting way for a game to start? Well, it's gotta be this play right here. The opening kickoff for a touchdown. The kicker kicks the ball off, and most of the time, it's going into the end zone for a touchback, or it's getting returned for a minimal gain. People are just getting to their seats, or just turning on their television sets, and over 99% of the time, they're not missing anything of note. Heck, statistically speaking, roughly 0.5% of kickoffs get returned for a touchback. But every now and then, you get a kick that's able to be returned, and you get a few blocks here and there, you get a returner that hits the hole, maybe you get a missed tackle or two, and you've got yourself a touchdown. Again, it doesn't happen often. Maybe in the 250-ish games that get played each year, or 272 today, you get one or two of these plays in an entire season. Although that number could definitely go up in 2024 with the new kickoff rules. But when it does, it's the best and the most exciting way for a game to start, bar none, as the game starts off with a bang and with one team having all of the momentum right away. The game is barely commenced, and already, someone's got a lead. And today, we're going to talk about one of these opening kickoffs for a touchdown. Because during this game right here, a 1998 game between Washington and Arizona, something incredible happened as the game started. A radio station affiliated with Washington decided to run an absolutely absurd promotion about the unlikeliest of events, made even more unlikely by the fact that it hadn't happened all season, and made even more unlikely by their history, both this season and in franchise history. As for what happened next, well, let's just say that someone went from euphoria to devastation in the span of seconds. From the top of the world to nothing, all with the snap of a finger. Because this is the story behind one of the craziest promotions in the history of the NFL, and one of the craziest promotions in Washington's long and storied franchise history. The promotion that cost someone nearly $60,000. Before I talk about the actual promotion in question and what exactly happened, we need some context to understand the game itself, the importance of the game, and perhaps most importantly for the sake of our story, what Washington's history was when it came to the unlikeliest of events. It's November 8th, 1998. It's week 10 of the NFL season, and we're down in Tempe for an NFC East battle between Washington and Arizona. Yes, you heard that right. If you didn't know back then, there was a time where the Arizona Cardinals were in the NFC East. It was weird, it was bizarre, but that was how the NFL worked back then, divisionally speaking. Unfortunately for Washington, this game meant absolutely positively nothing, as this was shaping up to be one of their worst seasons in franchise history. The good news for Washington was that they entered this game riding high off of a 21-14 victory against the New York Giants in Week 9. The bad news was that the game against the Giants was their first win of the season, as they entered the Cardinals game with a 1-7 record, tied with the Philadelphia Eagles, Indianapolis Colts, and the Carolina Panthers for the worst record in the league, thanks in part to an abysmal defense that had allowed 241 points through 8 games, or over 30 points per game, which was by far the worst total in the league. They had no real chance of making the playoffs or doing anything this year, but maybe a win here would turn their season around, give them a 2-game winning streak, and give them something to build off of going into 1999. As for how this game played out, the Arizona Cardinals, who entered this game at 4-4 and right in the thick of things for the playoff picture for the first time since moving to the desert, ended up prevailing, as you've been able to tell from these highlights. It was a close, tightly fought affair, with Arizona even leading it by 9 points with 2 minutes to go in the contest. Even though Washington came back from down 26-17 at the 2-minute warning to take a 27-26 lead, thanks to a touchdown, an onside kick, and a field goal, the Cardinals drove down the field late and won it on a 47-yard field goal on the penultimate play of the game to take it 29-27. Arizona held onto the ball for over 35 minutes, had 187 rushing yards and over 5 yards per carry, and starting quarterback Jake Plummer didn't turn the ball over and posted a passer rating above 100, as Washington's defense, yet again, had a terrible outing on the field, though they did, amazingly enough, lower their points per game average allowed despite allowing 29 points, showing you just how bad they were. However, we're not here to talk about how the game ended. We're here to talk about how this game right here started. Because when you've got a bad football team, and you're a radio station that airs games of said team, and you need to do something to get people to tune in and spice up the ratings, you decide to run a promotion. And this promotion was something else entirely, with the winner getting a brand new $30,000 car, or roughly $58,000 in today's money due to inflation. If you want some perspective, that's about what a 2024 Chevy Tahoe costs. So it's not like the winner of this promotion would be getting some beat up used car. No, this car was legit and brand spanking new. All that had to happen during this game right here was that Washington had to receive the ball and take the opening kickoff for a touchdown. And from all accounts, this was quite literally the first week that the promotion was being run. The radio station, WJFK-FM, would pull a name out of a hat right before the game. So you had to listen to the radio station and turn on the game to know whether you were going to be the possible winner. That was step one. Step two was, well, somehow even more impossible than step one, because it required one of the most improbable things in football to happen. Not just any kickoff to be returned for a touchdown, but the opening kickoff of the game. And it had to be Washington doing it, which meant that Washington had to win the coin toss and receive the football, since teams did not like deferring back then. And as if this already sounded crazy on the surface, and trust me, it was, I want to put some more perspective into how insane this was. Over the first 9 games of the season, Washington had either not started off with the ball, or when they did start off with the ball and get the opening kickoff, they did nothing with it. You're watching some of their most recent opening kickoffs when they did start off with the ball and what they did with them. They hadn't crossed the 30-yard line all year on the opening kickoff. In fact, the last time that Washington crossed the 30-yard line on the opening kickoff was the final week of the 1996 season, 23 months before this, and that was the 31-yard line. And remember, we're talking about their own 30-yard line. You still had to go another 70 yards to reach the end zone. Across the entire NFL, returning an opening kickoff for a touchdown was obviously extremely rare and uncommon, as in the last 3 seasons before this game, there have been a grand total of 2 kickoffs returned. Doing some math, you had 240 games each season, and seeing as this was week 10, so the midway point of the year, let's call it 120 games in 1998 before the Washington-Arizona game. So that's 600 games. In those 600 games, twice have the opening kickoff been returned for a touchdown. That's it. That's 0.3% of the time. And that raises the other question. When was the last time that Washington actually pulled this off? When was the last time they actually took a kickoff and returned it all the way to the house for a touchdown? Well, for that, you have to go all the way back, and I mean way back, to the opening week of the season of 1967. Yep, that's right. To open up the 1967 season, in this game right here, in what would eventually become a 35-24 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, John Love, on the very first touch of his NFL career, returned the opening kickoff of the game 96 yards for a touchdown. To give you some perspective on how long ago that was, and how long ago 31 years was, the game was being played at Franklin Field. At the time that Love returned that opening kickoff for a touchdown, the Cincinnati Bengals were not yet a franchise. The AFL and NFL merger had not happened yet, as the teams were in separate leagues. Major League Baseball had not yet split the American League and National League up into divisions. Countries like Yemen, Fiji, Bangladesh, UAE, and the Bahamas were not countries, as they had not declared their independence. Songs like Daydream Believer, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, and Hey Jude, as in songs considered to be staples of the 1960s, they did not exist yet. You get the idea. It had been a minute since Washington actually returned the opening kickoff of the game for a touchdown. But when Dawn Smith, a 23-year-old graphics designer from Virginia, got her name pulled out by the radio station, for the first time, the contest was on. Washington completed the first part of the job. They won the toss and elected to receive. The promotion could have been over before the game even started, but half the battle was done. Now, with this man right here, Brian Mitchell, set to return, it was time for some magic to happen. Behold, a station running a promotion for the first time on an improbable event. And for the first time in 31 years, it actually happens.
Joe Nedney, who won the game last week for Arizona with a 53-yard field goal, kicks it off. And it is Mitchell from the goal line. Mitchell breaks loose. Brian Mitchell. Touchdown, Washington. Opening play of the game.
Unbelievable. Brian Mitchell had just done it. He took the opening kickoff in the end zone, found a block, broke a couple of tackles, made the kicker miss, and took it all the way for a touchdown. For the first time in 31 years, history had been made. Dawn Smith had just won herself a new car. Dawn Smith's life was about to change forever. The radio station ran a promotion that they thought had zero chance of actually winning. Because why would it win based on everything we know? And the recipient just became the luckiest person in the country. And then, that euphoria from Dawn Smith and that moment of panic from the radio station was about to go away. Because that's when the laundry came out on the field.
And the flag is signaled against the Redskins.
Final return, 10-yard penalty, first down.
That's right, the play had been negated by a holding penalty. No new car for Dawn Smith. No feeling of her life being changed forever, and a huge financial burden being lifted off her shoulders potentially, as she could have sold the car if she liked her current car and made a lot of money that way. No kickoff return for a touchdown. The play was wiped off. But what makes this even more insane is that you're never going to believe where the holding penalty was. It didn't come when Mitchell broke free. It'd be one thing if the only reason the play happened in the first place was because of a holding penalty that left a wide open hole for Mitchell to run through. Instead, it came from one of the most absolutely idiotic plays I've ever seen anyone make on special teams in my life. And that's saying something. Because we're going to look at this still image right now. I think it's fair to say at this point in the return that Brian Mitchell is gone. He's off to the races. He's got 5 yards and the angle on the late Pat Tillman. And unless Mitchell runs out of steam for some reason, or Tillman develops Olympic-level speed, Mitchell is gone. No one is catching him, and this is a surefire touchdown. Now, watch what happens next at the bottom of the screen. Because a solid 10 yards away from the play, with no one even having a chance to catch Mitchell, number 44 on the Arizona Cardinals, defensive back J.J. McCleskey, ends up getting tackled from behind by linebacker Patrice Alexander. There was no need for Alexander to make this play and tackle a guy from behind. There was no universe in which McCleskey, who is a solid 10 yards away from the play, is going to catch up to Mitchell with 35 yards to go. A defensive back trying to catch up to Peyton Manning with a 10-yard head start? Sure. But a defensive back trying to catch up to a kickoff returner, and one as good as Brian Mitchell? Never in a million years was that going to happen. Alexander just wanted to hit someone. He just wanted to do something. His tackle had no impact on the play whatsoever, but it was clearly a penalty, and it would not only wipe off the touchdown, but would deprive Smith of a new car. Now, to be fair to the station, they did not have to give Smith anything. They obviously did not have to give her the new car, because the kickoff was a return for a touchdown, as it was negated by a penalty. But they realized that Smith got absolutely robbed here due to pure stupidity. So to make it up to her, WJFK gave her 2 tickets and a suite to Washington's next home game, a 28-3 win against the Philadelphia Eagles, and they gave her a limo ride to the pregame tailgate party that the station was throwing. So they did give her something and tried to console her. But even though the suite was nice and the limo ride was nice, it was all temporary. It definitely was not the same as a brand new $30,000 car, or close to $60,000 in today's money. All because Patrice Alexander had to go ahead and, with a surefire touchdown, do whatever the heck he ended up doing. As for what happened after that whole game involving this team behind me right here and that entire controversy, let's just say that the man who committed the penalty, Patrice Alexander, was one of the most hated men in Washington afterwards. Not just because his penalty took a touchdown off the board, but because it deprived a woman of a brand new car. That was the only game that Alexander played in that season, as after the game, head coach Norv Turner, having zero tolerance for his stupidity, ended up cutting him. To this day, that is the last game that Patrice Alexander ever played in the NFL. So that's his lasting legacy. And don't get me wrong, that was very clearly a penalty, but I'm just confused as to why the heck he did it in the first place. Because again, Mitchell was gone. He did not have to do anything. Just don't do that. And not only do you have a kickoff return for a touchdown, not only are you starting up 7-0, but you also give a woman a brand new car. Amazingly enough, to this day, that 1967 kickoff return by John Love remains the last time that Washington returned the opening kickoff of the game for a touchdown. So we're going on close to 60 years now without Washington doing this. But Brian Mitchell, the very first time WJFK ran this promotion from all accounts that I could find, almost did. In fact, he absolutely should have, if not for a boneheaded penalty that had no impact on the play whatsoever. But the biggest loser might not have been Mitchell or Washington or anyone on the team. It might have been a 23-year-old from Fredericksburg, Virginia named Dawn Smith, who thought she had a brand new car for about 15 seconds, only to see the car of her dreams drive away. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.